It should be starting now.
Hello, everyone. Not sure that you're all here. We've been having, as you know, some IT issues getting started. Can someone just let me know that you can hear me?
They're not going to be able to let you know, but you're all good.
Oh, they can't. Okay.
All right, I can hear you.
Keep going then. Okay. So I'll just keep going with my presentation, and as people come in, they'll just pick up where I am. I'll start by introducing myself and tell you that I came to Laurel House, which is the only comprehensive domestic violence agency in Montgomery County, in 2001. At that time, I oversaw the shelter for our women and children. Since then, in 2005, I moved to be the director of counseling, and I've been in that position until this past July 1st, when I stepped down and became director of counseling emeritus, which means I'm partially retired, but not fully. So I'm here to talk to you today about intimate partner violence, trauma-informed best practices. Okay, so if you want to know anything more about me, please feel free to put that into the chat, and we can answer questions at the end. Okay. So I first want to offer an important caveat, and that is that intimate partner violence is an equal opportunity destroyer. Regardless of your gender, sexual orientation, religion, the color of your skin, socioeconomic status, education, occupation, or the lack thereof, we are all vulnerable. We also know from years of research and observation that the vast majority of those victimized identify as female, and those who perpetrate identify as male. So you may hear me refer to those being abused as she and her, and to those who offend as he and him. That being said, let's remember that people of all genders can be victims or abusers. You may also hear me say domestic violence or intimate partner violence and use those terms interchangeably. These terms are often used interchangeably, as I just said, but technically speaking, domestic violence occurs between family members in addition to intimate partners. Okay. So here's our agenda for the day, and you can read that on your own. The question I want to start with is, why is it important for us to learn about intimate partner violence? Firstly, whether we know it or not, many of the individuals who come to us for services are impacted by domestic violence. Some are victimized, some are those who abuse, and others, like children, live in homes where they witness its devastating effects. Secondly, intimate partner violence is out of the comfort zone for most human services workers. And lastly, more often than not, those who are not domestic violence professionals don't recognize intimate partner violence unless physical abuse is disclosed. And even if it is recognized, many professionals outside of domestic violence agencies are not sure what to do about it. So our goals for today's session, at the end of the workshop, hopefully you will be able to identify the dynamics of intimate partner violence and understand trauma from an intimate partner violence perspective. And when you get back to your workplaces, you will hopefully be able to screen for intimate partner violence and know how to best assist individuals exposed to it. Okay. So as you can tell from the screen, 1 in 3 teens experiences some type of abuse before their high school graduation. 1 in 4 adults who identify as female will experience domestic violence in their lifetime. And 1 in 7 adults who identify as male will experience intimate partner violence in their lifetime. Experience abuse, tell anyone about it. And young adults identifies female ages of 16 and 24 experience the highest rate of intimate partner violence. So let's take a minute and do a little true and false session. And you can just write this down for your own benefit. So the first question is, intimate partner violence occurs rarely and only in poor urban areas and to people of lower socioeconomic status. The answer to that one is false. Even though it's true that intimate partner violence is an equal opportunity destroyer, women living in poverty are at greater risk than women who are not. It is also true that women in lower socioeconomic classes are more likely to report abuse. We know that those who perpetrate in middle and upper classes may be less likely to use physical abuse, but perpetrate in other ways. Those victimized in these classes are less likely to be believed, less likely to report, and less likely to define their experience as domestic violence. All right, on to number 2. When intimate partner violence happens, couples counseling is generally advisable. True or false? The answer to that is false. Marital conflict and intimate partner violence are not the same. Couples counseling is helpful when there is relationship conflict, but not when one person wants to exercise power and control over the other. And we will get more into that as we progress. Number 3, anger management is not effective in stopping a perpetrator's abusive behavior. That's true. Intimate partner violence is about power and control, not anger. Many individuals are unable to express their anger appropriately and can benefit from anger management training, but that does not define them as perpetrators of domestic violence. Number 4, substance abuse and stress are root causes of intimate partner violence. And that is false. The majority of those of us who abuse substances and experience excessive stress do not perpetrate domestic violence. Number 5, it is usually difficult for survivors to leave. True or false? And that's true. The period after a victimized individual leaves or expresses a desire to leave is often the most dangerous and the most lethal. When those who abuse feel a loss of control, like when victims try to leave, the abuse most often gets worse. Victims may also be unable to leave for other reasons, which we will be addressing later as well. So for the moment, I'm going to ask you to please get comfortable. If you feel safe enough, close your eyes and listen to what I'm about to tell you, and imagine that you are the main character in this story. And before I move on to I just want to offer another caveat that the story can be triggering, and some of the material I'm presenting can be true as well. So to take care of yourselves. If you need to take a break for yourselves, do whatever you need to do. Okay, so on with the story. You are a 35-year-old woman living with your husband and 2 children. You met your husband in college 12 years ago, very shortly after graduation. You are a stay-at-home mom who is active in your children's schools and church. Your 7-year-old son has asthma, is in the 2nd grade, and your daughter, age 9, is in the 4th grade. You love to spend time with friends and adore your 5-year-old cat. Most Tuesdays for the past 2 years, you go to Bible study at your church. This Tuesday, as you prepare to leave, your husband starts to yell at you and blocks you from leaving the house. This is not the first time he has attempted to sabotage your efforts to participate in activities that do not include him. He gets angry whenever you are on the phone with friends or family, and even though he joins you regularly for church on Sundays, where he is respected and often honored for his generosity, when at home, he makes fun of your commitment to your faith. You are concerned about his increasingly controlling and verbally abusive behavior. You call your mom, who lives in another state, and you hint to her about your concerns. Mom tells you that marriage is hard, divorce is harder, and it's a sin. She shares that she and your dad went through a rough patch too, so she advises you to stay first, especially since your husband is such a good provider and loving father. Give it time, she tells you. 2 weeks later, you have plans to go to an open house at your son's school. Your husband has had a particularly stressful day at work. He comes home early and is very agitated, but you decide to go to the open house anyway. He becomes angry because there are only leftovers for dinner. He grabs you hard by the arm and pushes you into the living room wall. The kids look scared, and you sense that they don't want you to leave them alone with their dad. So do you leave or do you stay? If you leave, you left quickly with the kids, so you need to buy them clothes. You can't find your debit or credit cards and suspect that your husband took them. All you have is the cash left over from the allowance he gives you weekly, not enough to sustain all three of you for very long. So do you go back or do you continue to stay away? Whether you are home or not, you decide to talk to your pastor. You're ashamed to talk about any of the details of your husband's behavior, so you are vague about what's happening. Your pastor recommends that you both come in for couples counseling to help you resolve your differences. You tell your husband what the pastor said, and he agrees to the meeting. If you decided to be at home, that you pick up his cleaning, and he doesn't have the specific shirt he had hoped to wear to an important meeting he's to have later today. He pushes you, you lose your balance, and you fall down the stairs and break your arm. Your daughter calls 911 while your son hides under his bed. The EMTs recommend you go to the hospital. Your husband leans down to hug you and whispers in your ear that he will break your other arm if you tell anyone what really happened. The hospital sets your broken arm and sends you back home with your husband. He now acts thoughtful, caring, and supportive. Do you leave or do you stay? If you leave, you're ashamed to have your neighbors or church friends know about what's going on. So you go to stay with a cousin who lives across town. She is single and lives in a 2-bedroom apartment, so you and your children must share a bedroom with only one full-size bed. Your cousin smokes, which affects your son's asthma. Whether you left or are still at home, you are hesitant but hopeful that meeting with the pastor will help you figure out what you can do to make your relationship better and for your husband to stop his hurtful behavior. You immediately soon realize that the only reason your husband agreed to go was to paint a picture of you as a neglectful wife and mother, and that you spend his money without regard to how hard he works for it. You feel ganged up on by both your husband and the pastor. You don't talk about what your husband has said or done because you are afraid of what he might do when you leave. Your pastor offers you a referral for therapy. Your husband hears the suggestion as validation that you are the problem. You decide that it might be helpful in dealing with your increased anxiety and depression, so you make an appointment. In the meantime, for those of you who went to live with your cousin, also a woman of strong faith, she tells you to pray harder for guidance on how to reconcile with your husband, since it is incumbent upon you to make your marriage work for the sake of the children and your marriage vows. Continuing to stay with her and accept her help increases your confusion about what to do. Your husband has somehow found out where you are staying, and he begins to stalk you. You see his car when you are shopping and near your cousin's apartment. You meet with a therapist who urges you to file a restraining order, but she doesn't understand how mad that will make him. His reputation in the community and at work would be at risk and means a great deal to him. Also, if he should lose his job, how could you live? Things continue to deteriorate. During one of his rages, your husband dumped your Klonopin and Zoloft down the toilet, which your doctor had prescribed for your depression, anxiety, and panic attacks. You can barely function, so you call your doctor to make an appointment, since the pharmacy won't give you any pills without a prescription, and your doctor won't give you a prescription without first seeing you. You can't get an appointment for at least 5 more days. Since you're not yet due for a refill, your insurance won't cover the cost of the pills. One Friday night, your husband takes his pistol out, lays it on the kitchen table, drinking, and tells you that you'll never see the kids again. Do you leave or do you stay? So for those still at home, you hide his gun. He finds it, loads it, and comes after you. You are able to call 911. The police come, remove the bullets from the gun, and take the rest of the bullets with them. They tell your husband to settle down and go sleep it off. They see no evidence of injury, so they can't arrest him. Do you leave or do you stay? If you stay, at breakfast you can't find your cat. Your husband laughs and says, "We're better off with that popsicle." Later that morning, you find the cat barely alive in your freezer. Stress has taken its toll. Son's asthma now requires ongoing daily medication. Your heart is sleepy about your children and fearful about what your husband may do next. Even if you want to leave, no, stay with them. You have no more money. With all that's been going on, you stop going to activities. You stay at home, and the situation continues to get worse. So I'd like a moment to come back to the present, to think about what feelings and thoughts came up for you as the character in this story. You can write your comments in the chat. So what is partner violence or domestic violence? It's a pattern of coercive and assaultive behavior. It exercises power and control over the other using different forms of abuse. Physical abuse includes a wide range of deliberate acts that most of us are familiar with. It can be a punch, a shove, a slap, a pinch, or a brutal criminal assault. That's the kind of abuse that we all associate with domestic violence, especially the lay community. But there are many other ways in which abusers can abuse. Psychological abuse. That involves repeated attacks on self-esteem, name-calling, put-downs, brainwashing, controlling or limiting what you do, who you see, and where you go. Threats of physical harm or suicide. Minimizing the abuse and stating you caused it, and using privilege. There was a former shelter resident in our program, let's call her Tammy. She reported that her partner put a lock on the refrigerator. He took all the phones with him when he left the house, locking her in, and threatened to go after her family if she even tried to leave him. Ultimately, she was able to leave, and in the meantime, he had never laid a hand on her. Technological abuse is on the rise. Examples include using GPS and hidden cameras to stalk survivors, pretending to be them on social media to trash their reputation. Economic abuse. This is the use of money as a means of control. Examples are refusing to pay bills, denying or limiting money for food and clothing, using their partner's credit cards. There was a woman in one of our groups, we'll call her, came to the group regularly wearing the same 10-year-old cloth coat. She managed to stretch the $50 a week her husband for groceries and personal items for their family by shopping at discount and thrift stores, while her husband bought himself a new car annually and every electronic gadget that came on the market as soon as it came on the market. Sexual abuse. Sexual abuse includes a range of behaviors from pressure to engage in sex to a forced sexual assault. A number of my clients reported that they were coerced into having sex with others while their partner participated or watched. And some even reported being forced into sexual exploitation. Stalking. Stalking is pursuing obsessively and aggressively to the point of harassment. In 1990, California was the first state to pass a stalking law that made it a crime to follow, threaten, or harass someone, especially if the stalker threatened violence. And then there are other ways to abuse, and these include destruction of property and possessions, which in a domestic violence context are never random acts, but rather selective acts of violence used to make a point and to terrorize. Examples are arson, kidnapping, killing or abusing favorite pets, or destruction of treasured possessions. So let's take a look at the cycle of abuse. The cycle of abuse is like this. Let's start at the top. We start with the tension building phase, when those who are victimized describe their experience feeling as if they are walking on eggshells. The abuser will blame his targeted victim for things that go wrong in the relationship. Controlling behavior escalates. For example, he may threaten to hurt her if she disobeys. Then is the incident phase. This is marked by violent in his behavior. He will become physically violent and or emotionally threatening. The victim fears for her safety. Then there's the honeymoon phase. Oftentimes, this is when those who abuse apologize and promise that threats and violence will never happen again. The victim may feel some relief and be hopeful that indeed it won't happen again. And then there's a period of calm where life seemingly returns to normal. But then the cycle begins again and the tension begins to build again. It can repeat itself in hours, weeks, or months. We also know that the abuse will most likely escalate unless someone or something steps in to break the cycle. So why do they stay? This is the question most asked. It implies that somehow the survivor has done something wrong. Instead, the question should be, why did those who abuse do it? So let's talk first about abuser tactics. Not all abusers are alike. However, their tactics for gaining control and domination over those they abuse are similar. For example, they may have a very good public image. They may feel entitled, selfish, and self-centered. They take no responsibility for their actions, blaming their partner or others for their behavior. They are disrespectful towards their partner and believe they know what is best for them. They use manipulation, confusing their partner, changing moods abruptly. They may be possessive and jealous, isolating them from family and friends. I'm not a fan of psychiatric labels, but their behavior often fits the criteria for narcissistic personality disorder, borderline personality disorder, or sociopathic personality disorder. That being said, those who abuse require trauma-informed care too, since in most cases they are acting out of their own trauma histories. What we know through research and what experts tell us is that of the men convicted into intimate partner violence assaults, they were either abused as children or witnessed their parents' intimate partner violence. So in conclusion, that really suggests that we're all victims. Societal messages. Society may tell the abused person, your partner is a wonderful provider. You promise better or worse. Your partner doesn't mean what they say or do, or your partner has their needs. The harsh realities are that unless there's a restraining order against the abusive partner or they're incarcerated, anywhere the abused person goes, the abusive partner can go too. Custody and visitation will keep abused partners chained to those who abuse until the youngest child is 18, and judges usually award 50-50 custody. Abuse often escalates after separation. Statistics and research tell us that most murders and murder-suicides occur after abused partners leave. And if abused partners don't do what those who abuse say, it will get even worse. This may be the only way those who are abused can think of to keep themselves and their children safe. Survivors believe, and they say to themselves, it's my fault. They believe the abuser. Self-blame is common. I can't make it on my own. They fear being alone. They can't afford to support themselves and their kids. If he stops drinking or drugging, the abuse will stop. They believe the abuse is about substance abuse, anger, or stress. I love him. They see the person they met and fell in love with. He threatened to hurt me if I leave. They fear for their lives. So this is a screening tool that we use at Laurel House to assist in helping assess for lethality. You probably can't see it very well, but questions of, has the physical violence increased in severity or frequency over the are they unemployed? Do they ever try to strangle or choke you? Do they control most of your daily activities? Have you ever hurt you while you were pregnant? Do you believe they are capable of killing you? And on and on. And based on the yes answers, we get a score that tells us the potential of the extent of the danger. And this is based on the responses that individuals gave who, or situations where the victims were actually murdered. And so it helps by sharing this with clients when we meet with them. It often helps put in black and white the things that they're experiencing and makes it much more real, which can be very frightening for them. Okay, so let's take a moment to just talk about trauma, which I know many of you are very familiar with. I like this quote because Sandra Bloom is someone local who many of you probably have heard her speak. And she said way back in 1997 in her first book, Creating Sanctuary, that a central organizing principle of human thought, feeling, belief, and behavior that is largely overlooked in existing explanations of responses to human behavior is trauma. This, we all know, has created a paradigm shift in the way that we look at people's behaviors. So what is a traumatic experience? The same event can be experienced, adapted to, and carried forward in different ways by different individuals. So the important thing to remember is the response by the individual to the experience or event that is traumatic, not the event itself. You can have, siblings in the same household who may be witnessing the same domestic abuse, and one may not experience it as traumatic as the other. So when there's no trauma, the human system integrates functions of memory, cognition, arousal, and emotion, resulting in a human system that's balanced and organized. But when there is trauma, reactions may occur when resistance and escape are impossible and useless or perceived as such, resulting in a human system that's overwhelmed and disorganized. This is important in the way that survivors are viewed by the court system. Often they're seen as not credible or highly emotional. And it's really a result of the trauma they've experienced that they may be behaving in these ways. So what we know is that post-traumatic stress looks like this. A flashback can be so vivid that some fear that they are losing their minds. It may look and feel very much like a psychotic hallucination, even though they are quite sane and entirely oriented to what constitutes reality and what doesn't. Some develop avoidant routines just to keep from experiencing flashbacks. Others use alcohol and other drugs to self-medicate. There was a woman that I saw in counseling, a former client who had been diagnosed by her psychiatrist with OCD. She reported that she cleans excessively to avoid feeling or believing that her abuser is actually in the room with her. She has reported that it may take her several hours to set a table for dinner. She is so focused on making it perfect to avoid the flashbacks. Okay. Let's take a moment and talk a little bit about the children in these homes, who we refer to as the child witness to intimate partner violence. I'm going to play you a song. I'd like you to listen to it.
When my daddy lived here, I never worried. When my daddy lived here, he read me stories, and I never was afraid when the endings were scary, 'cause my daddy would say, I will keep you safe when the boat comes to the house. Now my mother has a boyfriend. She let him move in. She let him tell her that she's just a fool, and I've heard them fighting. I heard him knock her down, and I tried to read at night, but I don't like it now when the ball lives in your house. You can't.
Oops, sorry. Oh, I'm so sorry.
She let him tell her she's just a fool, and I heard him fighting. I heard him knock her down, and I tried to read at night, but I don't. Stronger, and I will step in the way. I'll make him sorry when the ball lives in your house. You can't get him out. When the ball lives in your house, you can't get him out. I will get him out.
So most of you, I know, are familiar with the ACE study, which stands for Adverse Childhood Experiences. Many of the individuals that come to our agencies come from families where abuse occurred in their childhoods. Because of the ACE study, we know that trauma experienced in childhood affects us way into adulthood. And if you look at the slide, which many of you I'm sure are familiar with, column 1 asks about your experiences of abuse when 18 or younger, and column 2 asks if you lived in a household with these issues when you were 18 or younger. Okay. So I was going to show this film. If those of you want to see the film, what I will do is, well, actually, I asked that the PowerPoint be added to your resources. If you aren't able to find it there, or if you are eager to get it more quickly, if you put your email in the chat box, I will then email you the PowerPoint. Okay, thank you. I'm sorry that I couldn't show it. Okay, so let's talk a little bit about training for abuse. You may want to lead it into questions like, because many of the people I work with are hurt by family members, I ask everyone questions about relationships of abuse. And that way you can normalize it. How are things going with your adult child or partner? Who makes decisions at your house? Are you afraid of your adult child or partner? Does anyone you live with make you uncomfortable? Does anyone threaten you or force you to do things you do not want to do? Using terms like domestic violence or intimate partner violence or abuse will result oftentimes in false negatives. Instead, we should lead into statements and questions like I just covered, not using the words domestic violence or abuse. Safety planning is the most important intervention for victims of abuse. Many of us often want to strongly encourage victims to leave an abuser, especially those who have been seriously injured. But we must keep in mind that those who have been abused often face limited and poor choices. Deciding to leave or stay in a relationship is a life-altering, difficult decision. Abused persons need support and information to help them with these decisions. So the next 3 slides address safety planning. I share them with you so that you have an understanding of what domestic violence advocates might be addressing with the survivors they help. They are the experts when it comes to helping them plan for safety. These suggestions will not apply to each case since each situation is unique. What we say to survivors often is, during a violent incident, if an argument seems unavoidable, try to have it in a room that has access to an exit. Keep your cell phone on with you at all times. Have a code word to use with your children, family, friends, and neighbors when you need the police. Avoid a room with weapons or things that could be used as weapons, such as a garage, a kitchen, or the basement. Practice how to get out of your house quickly. Consider parking your car in a way that will allow you to get away quickly and easily. For when you're preparing to leave, choose a safe time for you to leave. For example, when the abuser is at work. Try to keep some money tucked away or open your own bank account if possible. Create a secure email account. Keep your cell phone with you at all times. Memorize the hotline number to your local DV agency. And make a habit of backing your car into the driveway and keeping it fueled. Keep the driver's door unlocked and the others locked. Prepare an emergency bag that you hide or keep at a trusted friend or neighbor's house, which may include some of the things that you see on the slide. After leaving, change locks on doors and windows. Change passwords to online accounts. Consider changing your cell phone number. Always keep your cell phone with you. And update privacy settings on your social media accounts. Install a motion-sensitive lighting system outside. If you have a protection from abuse order or PFA, keep a copy with you at all times. Give a copy to the police, to your employer, as well as your children's school and child care provider. Notify all child care providers about who has permission to pick your children up, and choose a safe and public location for custody exchanges. Inform neighbors, landlord, and others that your partner no longer lives with you and that they should call the police if they see them near your home. And that's just a sample of the type of, safety planning that domestic violence advocates do. So when we talk about healing trauma, particularly when we're working with domestic violence survivors, the first and most important thing is safety planning, as you might imagine. And that includes not just physical safety, but assisting with emotional, financial, and social safety. This aspect of trauma treatment for domestic violence survivors is the expertise of domestic violence programs. Psychoeducation and emotion management focuses on learning about domestic violence and trauma. At my agency, we offer the book, Why Does He Do That? By Lundy Bancroft to each survivor we serve. Clients who go through then a 6-week healing trauma curriculum when they first start. For emotion management, we work on grounding techniques and techniques like yoga, mindfulness, and breath work. The next phase is processing feelings, and that's telling of the abuse and the grieving of all that was lost using various therapeutic techniques. Most often, this is done in a therapy environment. Identity and relational functioning is pretty much the last thing worked on, and it's the time for building self-esteem and self-compassion and identifying the green flags of healthy relationships. It's a time to be moving on, strengthening existing healthy relationships and making new ones. Now, these do not happen in a straight line. It's more like what you might imagine if you think of a slinky, and that if you follow the slinky with your finger, there are ups and there are downs, but the point is that you keep moving forward. So when you're talking to an abused person, Suggest that they develop a safety plan in case of emergency, keeping money, important documents, a change of clothes, and an extra set of keys in a safe place, such as at a friend's house or a neighbor's house. Think about ways you might feel comfortable helping them. If the survivor decides to leave the relationship, they may need money, assistance finding a place to live, a place to store their belongings, or a ride to a shelter. And get advice. Get advice from your local DV agency. They will be happy to speak to you about any situation you may be dealing with and help you help your friend. So there are intimate partner violence programs for offenders. There are two that I'm most familiar with. SAFE is a program of creative health in Pottstown, and Cordia, formerly known as Menergy, is a program in Philadelphia. There is also a Pennsylvania court-ordered approved online classes for abusers as well. Every county probably has something like the SAFE program and the Cordia program, and they're mostly groups. They mostly meet perpetrators in groups, both men and women. And I offer you this information just so that you are aware that there are services for both survivors and for those who abuse. Okay. So I want to tell you a little bit more about what a domestic violence program does and looks like. I will use Laurel House as an example, since that's where I work and I'm most familiar with. To start with, PCADV, or the Pennsylvania Coalition Against Domestic Violence, is the state coalition that funnels federal and state monies to the domestic violence programs across the state. And I believe there are 57 of them, covering all the counties of the state. They also take the lead in developing standards, promoting advocacy, legislation, and education, and collaborating with other systems at the state. Not all domestic violence programs have shelters, and not all shelters have domestic violence informed programs. That's an important thing to remember. So at Laurel House, we have hotline services that are available 24/7, and they are overseen by employees of Laurel House. We have counseling, individual and support group counseling for individuals 14 and older. We provide housing. We have emergency shelter, Safe Haven Center, which actually we are opening a new Safe Haven Center shortly, hopefully by the end of this year. We also have transitional housing, and transitional housing specifically for those who are survivors of domestic violence. And we participate in a rapid rehousing program as well, specifically for those who are experiencing or have experienced domestic violence. We also provide crisis counseling through our DART program. DART stands for Domestic Abuse Response Team. The DART team also provides legal advocacy, information about protection from abuse, orders, accompaniment to legal proceedings. We also have an attorney that works on a grant that allows her actually to work with custody and protection from abuse and things related to the domestic violence directly. We cannot do divorce or other kinds of legal issues, but we can represent clients for, like I said, custody issues and protection from abuse orders, etc. Lastly, we have community education. It's prevention education training for schools and colleges, also providing community awareness to churches and other fraternal groups or sororities, fraternities, wherever we are, a request is made or wherever we do outreach, and let people know that we will be there to help enhance their awareness of domestic abuse. Okay. Lastly, we have a volunteer program that's very extensive, and much of what we do could not be done without our volunteers. So this last slide gives you the steps you may need for yourselves or for consumers. And at this point, I'd like to open us up to Q&A. And Bob, could you let me know what some of the questions are?
Sure, I don't see any posted in the Q&A. What? There might be one in the chat.
Okay.
Let's see. Yeah, I'm not seeing any questions posted.
Okay. All right, so if there are no questions, we're very close to time, I believe. I went through things pretty quickly. Any comments? I'm especially interested if anyone had a willingness to share what it was like for them when I was reading the script early on. Or if you like, just to give me an idea if you felt that this was helpful. So Bob, I guess there's nothing there?
No, I'm not seeing anything posted.
Okay.
There's a little lag time, so.
Okay.
Somebody did post in the Q&A. Patricia Oblio, can you please provide the name of the song you played?
Oh, the name of the song is The Wolf, and it's by Katie Curtis. It's an old song, but it really speaks to the impact on children.
Okay. Some of the posts are popping up in the chat now with the response to your question on how people felt. Are you able to see them?
I can't see anything. Okay. All I see is the Pathways for Victim Services virtual conference and myself.
Okay. Janessa,
here we go.
Yep.
I'm used to Zoom, and this is different than Zoom.
Yeah, same here.
Oh, here we go. Okay, so someone, Vanessa wrote, when you were reading the script, it definitely made me feel as if I would feel helpless and angry that not even the police could help me. Yes, and that's the reality, unfortunately, for many survivors. And they are upset and angry and feeling hopeless and defeated. That's exactly right. And someone else wrote that it reminded them of why she left her husband and how far she's come. Congratulations. That's wonderful. And Jennifer said that it was very helpful. I presume you're meaning the entire, the session itself. I hope so. Anyway, I hope that's been helpful. So I'm just checking to see if I can see anything in the Q&A. Here we go. Oh, how soon is the Safe Haven opening, and is this opening for other county clients also? That's a good question. We will serve clients from other counties when it's not safe for them to receive services in their own county, especially when it comes to Safe Haven. Or if they may be closer to us or they work in our county, and it's just much easier for them and safer for them to access services in a different county. We work with, people in our own county, but we will, depending on the circumstances, work with people from other counties. We will refer people to their own county, especially if there are legal issues, because each of the court systems in each of the counties is different. Our safe haven, we're hoping will open by the first of the year. Of course, with COVID and other issues that have been going on with supplies, there's been a bit of a delay. We were supposed to be open in September, but I consider January, a soon enough date anyway. I'm not sure to what extent we will be fully open because of concerns around COVID, but it will be ready for residency by then. Right now, we are putting people up in hotels and providing services through, that way. All of our counseling services right now, group and individual, are done virtually. Okay, so thank you, Gretchen. And that's right, Patricia asked for the name of the song, and I gave It's the Wolf by Katie Curtis. Okay, if there are no other questions, let me put my email in the chat.
There is a question in the chat from Tammy.
Yeah, hold on just a sec. Oh, I just see it. Yes, people who, like I said before, we will see people in counseling from other counties, but it's usually in their best interest to get the counseling from the county in which they are a resident, but not always. So it's on a case-by-case basis, depending on circumstances, but we do not limit services to only Montgomery County residents. So I'm putting my email in the chat so that if you want a copy of the PowerPoint, shoot me an email and I'll make sure you get it. Okay, it's been a pleasure. I would have loved to been able to see all of you, but this is not that kind of platform or format. I'm glad at least that you got to see me. If there are any other last minute questions, please either put them in the chat, because that's where I'm looking right now. Okay. So thank you for listening, and I hope you enjoy the rest of the conference. So has everyone left, Bob?
No, we still have some people that are on.
Okay. I just want to jot down the emails that some people left in the chat so I can get them the PowerPoint.
Okay.
Okay. Still writing down the emails.
Okay.
Sorry, it's just taking me a minute.
That's okay.
I really appreciate your help and how hard you worked to make sure that this got going.
Oh, it's no problem.
Okay. I'm getting there. I didn't realize there were so many. But I did ask them to do that, didn't I? Okay. How many were in the session altogether?
We had 47 altogether, which is how many signed up for this presentation.
Well, that's good. Let's see, Johnson. Just when I think I'm done, there's more. Okay, I think I got them all.
Okay.
Yep, I did. So, is there anything else we need to do?
Nope. If you've got everything that you've needed, I can go ahead and shut down the presentation.
Okay, that's great.
All right. Well, thank you.
It's
And
been a pleasure.
I hope you have a good day.
You too.
All right.
And thanks
Bye.
again for all your help.
You're welcome.
Bye-bye.
Bye.